Hello there and welcome. Welcome to the New Book of Daniel podcast. My name is Daniel Bobinski, and I will be your host on this adventure today. Today we're talking about our new format. We have the column that I've written for Uncover DC, and then 5 topics to cover. We're going to cover almost 5 topics in 15 minutes or less. Anyways, Daniel Bobinski here with the New Book of Daniel. Quick plug. If you want to support the podcast, go to myworkplaceexcellence.com because there you're going to find out what I do for a living. Because if you want to support the podcast, just have my company help your company. Or if you want to do some one-on-one coaching, we do that too. Been doing that for 30 years. Great track record, great clients, lots of referrals. So if anything that you want to see there that you think we can do to help your business, contact us. Be happy to help you out. And you'll be supporting the podcast. So on to the podcast. Today, I've got a new column coming out at uncoverdc.com. If it's not up yet, by the time when you hear this, it will be in the next day or so, or sooner. Never know. Anyways, it's called Legacy Media is Motivated by Fear and Hate, because it is. This is kind of an interesting little springboard into this, because we had the rally in Virginia for the Second Amendment rights, right? And it was really interesting how the media was trying to set this up to be this white supremacy thing. And so I started doing some looking around, and I came across this op-ed over on NBC.com by a guy by the name of Noah Berlatsky. Turns out the guy lives in Chicago. He's a writer, used to be working in curriculum design for schools in Chicago. I relate to that. I mean, I've got an undergrad, master's, and all but dissertation for a PhD in how people learn. And I've written a lot of curriculum and created a lot of e-learning over the years. So I kind of understand that mindset. And I'm a writer. So maybe we got something in common. The only thing we got in common is the fact that we're both writers and we both understand curriculum design. Because this guy, I read this piece and oh my gosh, I could write a book just countering everything that he talked about in this article. He made so many assumptions, and his worldview is that everybody who is white who votes for Trump is a racist. And it was amazing to me to read this. So I felt I can't just let this go. I've got to address some of this. Like I said, I could write a book just rebutting everything in its column. But I just took the first paragraph, and that was enough to get me an entire comment. In fact, I was deciding what am I going to leave out on this thing. But he starts off talking about this. If the Trump era has taught us anything, it's that large numbers of white people in the United States are motivated, at least in part, by racism in the voting booth. And he goes on to make some comments that I'm going to refer to. And I respond by saying, you know what? In the era of Trump, if it's taught us anything, it's that large numbers of media in the United States twist the truth because they're motivated in part by hate and fear, or fear and hate. They're afraid that they're not going to see their socialist worldview come to pass, and they hate Mr. Trump for throwing a wrench in their gears to slow it all down. So I quote some things about the immigration, because he talks about immigration. Here's this quote. He says, Donald Trump ran an openly racist campaign for president, calling Mexicans rapists and criminals. There's a whole chapter right on that alone, right? Because Trump's kind of a patriot. He's about restoring the law. And ever since he started running, it's about restore the rule of law in this country. Let's get out of this overstuff that we're doing with all the leftists trying to impose everything. So let's get back to the rule of law. Well, Trump said we got Kane going around. Hillary's running mate Kane was saying that Trump's calling all Mexicans racist, and this is a direct quote. He says all Mexicans are rapists, quote unquote, from Mr. Kane, Tim Kaine. Here's what Trump said. Okay, a little bit of journalism for you here, Mr. Berlatsky. When Mexico sends its people, this is Trump quoting Trump, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. He says they're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. Okay, that's what Trump said. Did Trump say all Mexicans were rapists? Nope, didn't say that. But you know what? I don't think he was lying, because I went online and looked just last week. I looked up a little quick search on illegal aliens committing rape. Try that. You'll be shocked. Here, just last week, a 15-year-old girl in North Carolina was raped by an illegal alien who abducted her at the bus stop and then took her back to the shed and raped her. And then afterwards, he used his phone to translate the fact that he thought she was pretty. Illegal immigrant. 3 months ago in November, a migrant worker in Florida raped a 2-year-old. Mr. Berlatsky, are you listening to this? A 2-year-old. 6 months ago, in August of last year, 2 illegals repeatedly raped an 11-year-old girl in Maryland. There's not enough room in my column to list and describe all of what I got just looking up rapes committed by illegal immigrants. Mr. Berlatsky, are you cool with this? Because you know why the leftists want an open border? Because leftist arguments don't do well on their own. People know that the logic doesn't fly. So what do you guys need to do? You send in people to bully and disrupt rallies because you want to get the opposition looking bad. So you have to cheat, you got to bully, you got to voter fraud. It's rife with Democratic voter fraud in this country. And we also know that 70% of people coming across the border are going to vote Democrat. If you're moving across the border from South America or Central America or Mexico, we know from statistics, multiple places, and I've linked this in the article, more than 70% of people crossing the border from the South are going to vote Democrat. So why do we want Democrat votes? Mr. Berlatsky, are you comfortable with all these ladies getting raped, 2-year-olds being raped, so that we can have the security of the Democratic vote? I want you to contemplate that. Do you have any daughters, Mr. Berlatsky? Do you? You have a wife? Is this any concern to you at all that these young girls are going to go through their entire lives being reminded of all these things and have this trauma? And you know why your cohorts in the media won't discuss this? Because the Democratic votes. Because they have fear of not seeing their socialist dream, and they hate President Trump for throwing a wrench in their works. That's why they won't write about this kind of stuff. I think it's sick and disgusting, Mr. Berlatsky. And then, by the way, you then have this little quote where you say that Trump was regularly retweeting white supremacists. Again, one phrase, I can write an entire column on that. Regularly retweeting white supremacists. I wanted to see what Trump was retweeting. So I went online and I did a little investigation. In case you didn't bother to look that up, Mr. Berlatsky, here are the tweets that Mr. Trump retweeted from the white supremacist. And I'm going to read them. I truly believe that you are the best. Hashtag Make America Great Again. Thank you so much. I haven't seen anyone carry themselves so presidential since Reagan. Hashtag Make America Great Again. Ivanka said it, and you said it too. You'll be great for women. Hashtag Make America Great Again. Your performances in every state have been amazing. Hashtag Make America Great Again. The only winner of the hashtag Dem debate is @RealDonaldTrump. Do these sound like white supremacist tweets, Mr. Berlatsky? Do you know how Twitter works? In case you don't know how Twitter works, Mr. Berlatsky, people will tweet something. And if you like it, you'll retweet it. You know, you just hit retweet. There's no warning on there that says, warning, this tweet originated in the mind of a white supremacist. And there's no warning that says, warning, this tweet originated in the mind of an extreme leftist writer from Chicago who suffers from guilt and thinks all whites who voted for Trump are racists. No, Mr. Berlatsky, if I see a tweet from you that I think is something retweetable, I'll retweet it. I'm not going to go back and check to see what your background is. Okay, Twitter doesn't work that way. Then you say this: Make America Great Again meant that America was greater when white people's power was more sweeping and more secure. Really? Is racism all you can think of? I mean, I'm just going to ask you not to be quite so close-minded here. I mean, perhaps people were just feeling a little bit overwhelmed that they were having globalists like George Herbert Walker Bush and William Jefferson Clinton and George Walker Bush and Barack Hussein Obama all selling us down the river toward globalism. You don't think maybe, just maybe, that here comes a guy who says, I don't want to sell you down the river to globalism, and we voted for that? Maybe, just maybe, we were tired of our jobs going to India and China. Maybe, just maybe, we were tired of apology tours. Maybe, just maybe, we were tired of giving all of our money and taxes to foreign aid to countries that hate us. Maybe, just maybe, we're tired of our GDP not getting above 2.9%. Just think about this, Mr. Berlatsky. Try to get out of the one-track mind and think maybe there's another reason beside racism that somebody might vote for Trump. Think about it. If Trump was such a good white supremacist, then why has black support for Trump gone from 8% to 34% just in the past few years? If Trump is a white supremacist, he sucks at it. Just something to think about there, Mr. Berlatsky. Then you close by saying that 58% of the whites voted for Trump and 37 voted against him because those 58% are racists. Newsflash: if Mr. Obama had not been so Marxist and socialist, if he had been standing for the same principles that Mr. Trump was standing for, I, along with the 58% that you claim are racists, would have voted for Obama. Think about that for a second. Remember when Herman Cain was running for president? I was a big Herman Cain fan. I know lots of people who are Herman Cain fans. It's about constitutional principles. And how are we going to put this to sleep? How are we going to this ideological divide that the mainstream, I should say, legacy media, because I don't think you're going to be mainstream for long. But how are we going to put this to sleep is come up with a new media, and we're doing that. That's why I write for Uncover DC. That's why we have Epoch Times. That's why we have the Daily Wire, the Federalist, the Blaze, the Daily Caller, Breitbart, all these different places that are publishing actual journalism without fake news. You would learn a few things if you opened up your eyes, Mr. Berlatsky, and found out that there was something more. If you want to read that column in full, like I said, go to uncoverdc.com and you can read it and share it there if you like. All right, let's move on now to the 5 topics, and we're going to do this in less than 15 minutes. So probably faster than that because there's some short topics in here. We're going to start with the Second Amendment rally in Richmond. There's several things to talk about with this. This is interesting how the lead up to this rally was the media setting it up to be a white supremacist gathering. In fact, NBC was saying FBI arrests suspected white supremacists ahead of Virginia gun rally. Ooh, yeah, white supremacists. I think you guys were watching those guys for a while anyways. You just used it as a trigger. Well, then MSNBC. Here we go. The day of the rally. MSNBC anchor Craig Melvin falsely and outrageously claimed that a gun rights rally taking place in Richmond was attended by, quote, armed militia, white nationalist groups from all over the country. MSNBC. He said, "This is the scene in Richmond. Armed militia, white nationalist groups from all over the country taking part on MLK Day." I don't know. Did you even see any of the video there, Mr. Melvin? I was watching some of it. I didn't see any of what you're talking about there. Armed white nationalist groups. Here is CBS Nightly News, right? Evening News, sorry, CBS Evening News. Here's what they said. Tight security. More than 20,000 show up to protest stricter gun laws as police in riot gear turn out in force. No video of any of this. This is just their teaser, right? If you saw any of the video of this gun rally, you know that there was not police in riot gear turned out in force. People were going, where are the police? I saw one video that had a couple of state police standing around real casual, like no riot gear, nothing. But yet CBS wants to try to hype it up to say we got the violent people. Now look at this, NBC at tense Virginia rally. Gun rights activists vow their fight is just getting started. Men wearing camouflage military gear. Again, if you looked at the videos, go online, watch any of the videos. I was watching the live feed throughout the day, and none of that. The occasional person wearing camo outfit stuff. There was a very interesting video that I really enjoyed watching, and I'm glad I saw it. And I saw this live, actually, I think, or just early on when it came out. But there was a guy who said we should go hop that fence and kill that guy and start the revolution right now. And the people around him called him on it. And the protester, the guy with the camera shooting the video said, "Are you a conservative?" He goes, "I'm a libertarian." Well, I'm looking at this guy, and he is got this hoodie on, and he's not looking like anybody else. You can tell he's not quite dressed like everybody else. He's trying to dress like everybody else, but you can tell he's just not quite there. And the people start saying, "This is not what we stand for." The people gathered around him. And I was so glad to hear that, because everybody's walking around peacefully. And they said, "This is exactly what the left wants. We don't want this guy." And so one guy comes over and says, "We know who you are. You're an infiltrator. This is a peaceful rally. Get the blank out of here." I loved it. That was the only episode that I heard of in all the news of any kind of possible threat of violence. There was tens of thousands of people walking around. I've got a good friend that I was chatting with the night before, and he said he was going to the rally. And this guy is a super introvert. And throughout the morning, I'm tweeting him and saying, "How's it going?" And he says, "This is amazing." He says, "There's thousands and thousands of people here, and everybody is so peaceful and easy to get along with. There's no tension. There's no people all tensed up. It was just people walking around talking, just displaying their displeasure with the governor's gun grab." That's what it was. And then on the way out, he tweets me and says it was one of the most relaxing times he's ever had in a large crowd of people. And what was amazing to him was that everything was clean, that people were picking up and everything was left clean. And so here I saw in the news, sure enough, Virginia rally attendees pick up trash after themselves. Pick trash up after themselves. You believe that? You go to an Antifa rally or a feminazi rally, and it's like empty bottles and trash everywhere. And here in Virginia, you have people picking up after themselves. My favorite here is Miss AOC, Miss Cortez, who tweeted out, "Why were there almost no police officers despite flying Confederate flags and semi-automatic weapons?" First of all, I didn't see any Confederate flags anywhere in any of the videos. And why were there no police officers? Because the police officers know the people who live in Virginia, that these are law-abiding citizens. One of the senators, the state senators, was out there, people outside of the quote-unquote emergency zone where you couldn't carry a gun. The people that were carrying guns out around the perimeter of the Capitol. And one of the state senators said she felt safer out there than she did in there when there was no guns. So people were being very well behaved. These are law-abiding citizens. And AOC is wanting to know why there's almost no police officers. It's because there are responsible people out there, AOC, and you need to realize that. Responsible gun owners. All right. So there's our first of the five. Second of the five topic also has to do with AOC. She tweeted, oh, I love this. No, she didn't tweet this out. She was interviewed. Ready for this quote? This is short and sweet because it's just, it is what it is. Someone was asking her about the Democrats being a leftist party. And she said that the Democratic Party is not a left party. It's a center conservative party. You believe this? Quote, we don't have a left party in the United States. The Democratic Party is not a left party. It's a center or a center conservative party. There are left members inside the Democratic Party that are working to try to make that shift happen, though. God help us there. If she thinks that the Democratic Party is not a left party, it's a left center party, but we have true leftists in the party trying to make it a left party, stand back, Democrats, because you're about to go way left. And stand back, America, because the Democrats are going to go left. Okay, number 3. We're going to jump over to Europe here. Headline here at Breitbart. In Sweden, sex offenses on teen girls are up 51% since 2015. 51%. That's if you are under the age of 17. You believe that? What's happened in Sweden that you can think of? Let's see. We've had some refugees come in who don't want to assimilate. Could that be it? Oh, I guess that could be it. But we're not supposed to talk about that, right? Because that's racist, except that being Muslim is not a race. It's a religious and political and military structure. And if you don't believe me on that, and I've said this on previous podcasts, go to YouTube and look up anything by Roger Federer having to do with Islam. He's a historian, and he's got great videos out there explaining how Islam is a religious and political and military organization. They come to our country under the flag of religious freedom, and then they get political, and then they become military. Just go to the no-go zones in Montana, Minnesota, and Michigan if you doubt what I'm talking about, or go to YouTube and look what those videos are showing you. Anyways, in Sweden, sex offenses on teen girls up 51% since 2015. Think about that for people who don't want to assimilate in this country. All right. Today, the impeachment starts. Number 4, the impeachment starts today. And I don't have much to say on this other than I want to remind everybody listening that there are no crimes in the impeachment. You have basically a childish tantrum thrown by the House Democrats that when Trump goes to the Supreme Court to say, hey, don't I have the right to not do this, they say that that's obstructing Congress. When in fact, Clinton did that, and lots of presidents have gone to the Supreme Court. Those are not impeachable offenses. The trial starts. Just want to like to remind you, we got 48 hours of testimony, 24 on one side and 24 on the other. Whether they break that up, there's different ways that they can talk about breaking that up, but it's going to take a couple of days for all the case to be heard. And then they'll decide if they want to hear witnesses. I just want to remind everybody, there's no crime. There's no crime. But that's it. There's no crime. All right, last up is kind of a prediction I've been sitting on for about a month or two. Because I first saw this happen back in early November when George Soros was being interviewed, and he said that he thought that Elizabeth Warren had what it took to become the president of the United States. He said she's the most qualified to be president. And the way that George Soros has been moving and shaking in the back rooms of our country, I thought, this is interesting. I bet you he's going to be floating some money her direction and pushing for her to become the nominee. Well, guess what happened? On the 19th, the New York Times editorial board has endorsed Elizabeth Warren and Klobuchar, 2 different nominations for Democratic nomination, right? So Warren is one of the 2 Democratic endorsements from the New York Times. In fact, they're not even going to endorse Trump, you know that. So they're going to endorse Warren because Klobuchar is going to be, she's in single digits right now. They're doing this just to say, hey, we want to endorse a couple of feminists. We're all pro-women here. But they've endorsed Elizabeth Warren. And George Soros is behind Elizabeth Warren. So I'm going to go out on a limb. I may end up being wrong, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think Elizabeth Warren is going to be the Democratic nominee because the NYT has endorsed her and Soros is supporting her, and he thinks she has what it takes. Yeah, you're going to see lots of Bernie supporters, but I don't think the DNC wants Bernie. Same reason that they pulled the shenanigans on him 4 years ago with Hillary, when he was pulling out way ahead, and they pulled their shenanigans to get Hillary out front. I think they're going to pull the same shenanigans this time. All right, we'll wrap this up because of a little tag on this, because I'm predicting that Warren's going to be the Democratic nominee. But I also see Mike Bloomberg in the background. Notice that he doesn't go to any of these debates because he can't. He'd get laughed off the stage with his positions. He's such a wacko. Total statist control freak. His policies will never fly with the American electorate. Not even the left or the center conservative party, as AOC would call them. But what we have in the news is Bloomberg is assembling a team of fundraising experts to recruit wealthy donors, but he doesn't want their money. What Bloomberg's trying to do is tie up their commitment so that they will not donate to Warren or Sanders or anybody else, that they'll save their money for him. So he's going around trying to get big, deep pocket donors just to say, I'm from Mike Bloomberg, but he doesn't want their money. That's what the thing's saying. So we know that Bloomberg is playing his cards to go to the convention, hoping that Warren and Sanders are going to be duking it out. And he's going to bet on a brokered convention and try to sneak in that way without having to go through any of the vetting process of any of the debates or any of the primaries and that kind of stuff. So that's a very likely thing. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen. It just looks that way. Okay, so there's our 5 in less than 15. You've heard about my column over at uncoverdc.com having to do with the legacy media motivated by fear and hate. And so with that, I'm going to wrap it up. If you want to get a hold of me, reach me via email using newbookofdaniel@outlook.com. That's newbookofdaniel@outlook.com. You can follow me on Twitter @newbookofdaniel. @newbookofdaniel. I got a blog also. It's the New Book of Daniel blog, which can be found simply at newbookofdaniel.com. I don't blog there a whole lot, but I do from time to time if you want to go track that. And like I said, if you want to support the podcast, go to myworkplaceexcellence.com. Take a look at how my business can help your business or how we can work with you on some one-on-one coaching. We do DISC assessments. We do motivators assessments. We do cognitive style assessments. We do team training, lots of stuff you can find there. Anyways, check that out. So, and then finally, look at all my political columns over at uncoverdc.com. That's the end of today's New Book of Daniel podcast. My name is Daniel Bobinski, and we'll catch you next time. Have a great day.